Hello everyone, my name is Tugce Karatas. I'm a PhD fellow in the program of Digital Technologies for Cultural Heritage, hosted by Department of Computer Science, University of Torino in Italy. And with my supervisor, Professor Vincenzo Lombardo, we will present today a multiple perspective account of digital curation for cultural heritage. And I will be talking about the tasks, disciplines, and institutions specifically. So just to start, to give you the glimpse of the presentation, I will be talking about digital curation through the schema that we created. And in this schema, I will be talking about the cultural heritage domain from its beginning till the end, what is happening, what are the tasks, what are the digital technologies. And the goal of this research is examining the contribution of digital curation, which is fairly new in the field of cultural heritage. And by doing that, I will be reviewing the component of the cultural heritage task, the curatorial task for the cultural heritage in specifically, and some digital tools. In the long term, my project is about to develop a unified digital curation framework. And what is this digital curation? Managing data actively from its point of creation or acquisition until it's determined to be useful or not useful or the end, and considering all the accessibility, preservation, personalization, or authentication issues. Some of them considers it as an operational workflow. So it's basically consists the preservation, data curation, and management combines all these things from this life cycle of the cultural heritage assets, and also an emerging field because it's kind of making relations between the researcher, practice, training, multinational, multidisciplinary. Then why digital curation is still far from being a common practice? So, in fact, as much as the digital technologies are evolving, cultural heritage institution is still neglecting the importance of the information technologies, right? Cultural heritage assets physically is not the same as the digital assets. And there are several softwares and several digital environments and several disciplines. Since its beginning till now, beginning, I mean that the first time the digital curation term is coined in 2001. There are several institutions, several researchers try to create frameworks for the digital curation. As you can see, there are a couple of frameworks, but there is not one simple or unified framework yet. What we did is we examined these frameworks and we got 6 different tasks. So later I will be talking through all these 6 tasks, which is data creation and acquisition, or data creation and preservation, data publication and dissemination, and I will give examples and explain the tasks and technologies. So overall, the schema you can see here starts with the cultural heritage domain, and it ends with either the archive, repository, or the publication, website, and exhibition. Just to start with the data creation or acquisition, as you know that the acquisition is about bringing data from an outside source. Whereas creation is getting this kind of measurements and the signals from a real world physical connection and converting it in a digital numeric values. Both of these, either or creation and acquisition, creates raw data after the process. So from the interdisciplinary account, these diverse tools and workflows and this kind of decision of the scientific communities to what is the best tool for the best quality of the data is very important in the personalized access. As an example, I think virtual electronic plan is the best example because this project was a replica of the Le Corbusier, the famous architect, in Pavilion in 1958 in Brussels World Expo. And later, the researchers tried to virtually reconstruct it. They had to, on the left-hand side, you can see the original drawings of the architect Le Corbusier. And these drawings accused from Philips archives. But it wasn't enough to digitally reconstruct the pavilion. They had to, in the middle, you can see that they had to create the data from the scratch, getting all this information. So this combines the data acquisition and the data creation together. So another step is the data processing and modeling. While we have the raw data after the process of the data creation or acquisition, now we had to get the process data. To do that, this kind of creating a conceptual model from raw data and feed it with the metadata. By metadata, I mean the data about a data. In this sense, you have to also understand the role of metadata, which is crucial. So why it's crucial that different scientific communities use different sets of meta standards. For example, a very well-known example of Mona Lisa. So this on the left, you can see this EDM, European Data Model, Dublin Core System, or SIDOC CRM. So this kind of enriching the data about Mona Lisa and shows you that the provider is the in France, and then also you can get in the web has view aspect, and also as well as the SIDOC CRM person of the Leonardo da Vinci. So the basic thing about the data interpretation is the making sense of all this numerical data from different source and different scientific knowledge. And all the members of the projects needs to access this kind of overview, the holistic overview of the data. For example, Project Çatalhöyük is in Konya, Turkey, and it's one of the long-term, multinational, multidisciplinary projects, archaeological projects, maybe in Turkey. And over the 40-50 years, numerous of the disciplines, numerous of the people, international and national, work on this project, right? So what digital technologies and digital curation allows us to get this kind of, during this task of the data interpretation, to be more specific, is that giving this access of the knowledge by layer, all these colors represents the different years, different scientific communities, and it combines in one virtual, the same environment. But GIS is specifically work on the archaeological project, is a geographical information system, and to do that, in order to do that, you need to get all this kind of scientific knowledge into this kind of interpretation of the data. The later, actually, this is kind of the overall umbrella of data processing and modeling, as well as data interpretation. So it's kind of the protecting, preserving the data. This management of the data is actually more related with the semantic relationships between things and people, also the artifacts and this kind of the parts, digital parts, and relational database as well. For example, so this repository TDAR, maybe you might know, is just about this archaeological knowledge. And it's, as you can see on the left-hand side, it's the fragment of the ontology. In order to understand all this kind of the curation and preservation of this data, you need to understand the data processing and interpretation, but also the relations of the database 1 and 2, as you can see, and the numbers and the taxonomies, as well as the coding and sheets. So these kind of environments and these kind of tools, digital tools, gives you this holistic view about the project. And also data documentation and archiving. Here is, as you might notice, that archiving is repository is not the same thing. What it means that this kind of the managing the metadata information about this kind of tables and database, and understand how to use the data, and this gives you the opportunity to who collected, where it was collected, when or where or how. So to understand that, I'm going to give you an example. So while we were talking about the Chataloid project, obviously everything collected during the years cannot be in the archive, because this kind of the living archive website, it shows you the who collected and how it was collected, and it's open access. In the personalization aspect is different scientific fields. You can also contribute this knowledge on the creation of the project, but at the same time you have to be purposeful in terms of this archiving. So it can be by years, by who, and by where and when. So it's kind of providing you this purposeful archiving website through this platform. The last one is data publication and dissemination. Here it's very simply providing this data from one source into the several different sources. By it means using these interfaces, you present and publish and disseminate the knowledge. So for one of the projects that we were involved, BRKO, we were building this website. So this website actually serves both publication and also dissemination purpose. So anyone can reach this data, but this data, it comes from strictly from these excavations in Japan about in Kofun under a tomb, and it's also coming from the different scientific perspective. So in order to do that, creating this kind of interfaces for the users, both for scientific and general public, it's very crucial to have this personalized access, because also it gives you an opportunity to combine backend and the front end. And also this kind of knowledge, when it's created in a system, you can reflect it in the exhibitions and you can reflect it in the publication. So what we learn, and just to conclude a little bit, that it's important to conceptualize the entire process. Digital curation gives you this opportunity and also gives you this kind of managemental skills to decide the tasks in advance, because it's important to define the roles and responsibilities in the beginning, and to do that you need to gain the knowledge and also exchange the know-how to train for the specific tools and the software application, which I told that it's not the same for each scientific communities. So digital curation helps in these issues of the personalization. The further steps of my research, on the other hand, is about the reviewing the tasks and the frameworks, and then compare them, and then eventually create a unified digital curation framework. So thank you. We would like to hear your thoughts. I hope you enjoyed, and you can always email me and my supervisor. And also I put some additional info here. If you're interested in the BRKO, project and also my PhD program, Tech for Culture. And also you can always reach me through my personal website. Thank you.